Morning, I'm Casey. This is Keystone Curiosity, where we talk about all things unique to the state of Pennsylvania. Today's episode, we're going to be exploring some Pennsylvania Dutch culture. Culinary culture. Very important.
Located throughout southeast Pennsylvania and permeating to the rest of the state and beyond, the culinary habits of the Pennsylvania Dutch are an excellent representation of the culture's time-honored values.
Those values focused on a resourcefulness to use what they had available to them, an efficiency to create as little waste as possible, and a simplicity to allow their communities to be as close to self-reliant as they could.
The combination of these values show themselves time and time again in everything from pig stomach and scrapple, which I do hope to do videos on in the future, to the baked goods that make up the focus of today's episode. While you'll certainly find plenty of pies, cakes, and cookies of all sorts in Dutch households, there is no treat more iconic than shoofly pie. As tends to be the case with a lot of foods, no one is really sure who, when, or how the first shoofly pie came to be. There are some stories of camp followers making them during the American Civil War, and speculation that its creation is associated with the United States centennial anniversary in 1876. Regardless, shoofly pie is generally dated to about the 1860s to the 1880s, and is usually attributed to the Pennsylvania Dutch, as it is the primary culture that still makes it to this day.
Now, if you're like most of us and wonder where the heck the name shoofly came from, well, there's a couple of different theories.
Shoofly was a particular brand of molasses made in Philadelphia and was named after a boxing mule that had toured Pennsylvania in the circus in the 1800s. Shoofly, the mule, would strap on boxing gloves to his front hooves and rear up on his hind legs in boxing matches with other animals. A more commonly told source of the name comes from the sweetness of the molasses that would attract flies and bees as the pies cooled, forcing bakers to have to shoo them away. Regardless of the true origin of the name, both touch on the key ingredient that makes the pie unique. For the most part, the ingredients are pretty simple: flour, sugar, butter, and various other common baking items. The only exception to this would be the syrup or molasses that makes up the pie's bottom. And speaking of the bottom, this brings us to a slight divide within the culture as to the true way to make shoofly pie: wet or dry bottom. A wet bottom shoofly pie tends to have a crumb-like top half, with the bottom being a gooey molasses in a way that looks similar to custard pies. Dry bottom I'll usually describe as more of shoofly cake, as it uses more crumbs and bakes longer to allow the molasses to soak into the crumbs. Less renowned than shoofly pie, but equally popular for folks of the area, is AP cake.
Now, for those of you who are unaware, AP cake tends to be a less sweet, more dense breakfast cake that's slightly different than crumb cake. Personally, I like dipping mine in my coffee.
Like shoofly pie, the origin of the name is up for debate. There are suggestions that it derives from the Eastern French word for spice cake, pain d'épices, which was later anglicized and absorbed into the Pennsylvania Dutch after coming to America. It is also suggested that AP stands for all-purpose, or might be the initials of the cake's supposed inventor, Anne Page, a baker from the Philadelphia-Baltimore area who would stamp them into her wares. Also like shoofly pie, AP cake is made from very simple ingredients, primarily flour, sugar, and butter, but over the years both delicacies would adjust their ingredients according to the times. Margarine, or shortening, will often be used in place of butter, and syrup can be used instead of molasses.
The outcome should still be the same though, right? Well, with the potential variations between each of these treats, I did what I suggest you do. Seek out expert opinions.
They call it the Moyer AB cake. I think that is this one.
Mm.
Another name for it is the Mary Ann cake. People call them Mary Ann cakes. People call them AP cakes.
Mary Lou is undoubtedly the best baker I have come across in my entire life, which I can say without any bias whatsoever. She has been making these and other amazing treats for the majority of her life, and it is her recipe that I'll be sharing with you today. We'll start with AP cake by selecting a large bowl to mix the dry ingredients together with soft butter, kneading it into a consistency like sand on the beach. Once there, we will mix ourselves a little bit of buttermilk by combining milk with baking soda and vinegar. Then mix the whole thing into the dry ingredients a little at a time until doughy throughout. From here, we separate the dough into 3 similar sized balls and spread them flat into the greased cake pans, and sprinkle a little bit of white sugar on top before baking at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. The shoofly pie starts off similarly by combining the dry ingredients for the crumbs in a large bowl and kneading to that same sandy beach consistency. In a separate bowl, we're going to mix the boiling water and molasses together with baking soda dissolved into vinegar after a fun little science experiment. The molasses mixture then gets poured evenly between 3 9-inch pie plates with some prepared dough in it. You can make your own if you'd like, but we got ours from the supermarket. Once divided, lightly sprinkle the crumbs over the top of the molasses equally amongst the 3. A good place to stop is when you can no longer see the brown of the molasses peeking through the crumbs. Then all 3 are baked in the oven at 350 degrees for 1 hour. Allow your work to cool, shooing away any flies as is necessary, and enjoy with your favorite people and some lovely conversations.
Have some more.
Oh, I will. Don't you worry
Have
about
some
that.
more.
There's plenty. Well, if you're a longtime subscriber to the channel, you may have noticed I haven't put out as many videos this year as I usually do. And while I'm not exactly thrilled about that myself, it has been a rather busy year. I moved back in spring, just got engaged here this fall, and I've spent the summer visiting a lot of family and close relations, which is part of what brought this video about.
My grandparents are of the generation that had still grown up and lived by the Pennsylvania Dutch culture, including many special recipes like the ones in this episode. And like many folks out there, I would be very sad to see the culture fade into obscurity, which you may have noticed from my high praise of the many events that highlight that particular culture.
But it's not the events or even these videos that see the culture persist. It's the common everyday people who take the time to appreciate those small, almost invisible aspects of it. Hearing stories of going down the creek, or taking the time to learn the recipes that you've cherished from those people who made it best. And that is my suggestion to you. Make the most of the time while you can, for I promise you, you'll never regret it. That is going to wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. As per the usual, if you have any suggestions on where to see me go next, feel free to leave them in the comments below. In the meantime, hit that like and subscribe so that you can receive notifications about anywhere else across the state of Pennsylvania. In the meantime, I'm going to eat my pie.